All right, welcome back to Live Impact News. Taking a bit of a turn back to our national headlines. Of course, a lot going on, particularly at the federal government, at the U.S. Capitol. It is currently shut down, but Senate is back in session, hoping to find a resolution to that. So we're going to listen in live. Mitch McConnell is speaking. Let's take a listen.
Funding extension will give Congress enough time to deliver full-year appropriations and release our military from the constraints of the Biden fiscal year 24 budget. But I want our colleagues to understand what's at stake this fall. The President has set some ambitious, important, and overdue priorities for America's national security. And none of them come cheap. Golden Dome for America, an America shipbuilding renaissance, sixth generation stealth fighter aircraft, the long overdue modernization of our nuclear force. Reconciliation isn't enough to support these major efforts, and neither is a perpetual freeze at the Biden fiscal 24 level. Reviving the warrior ethos, rebuilding the military, reestablishing deterrence, these are priorities we hear about all the time from the President's advisors. I certainly have no problem with rowing in that direction. I'm all for high standards of physical fitness, but push-ups alone aren't going to stop Chinese hypersonic missiles. The next major conflict will likely be a test of lethality at very long distances. That's why I've spent years urging successive administrations to rebuild our global power projection and long-range fires. It's why I criticize the Biden administration for talking about China as the pacing threat, but turning in defense budget requests that didn't even keep pace with inflation. The administration cannot afford to make this same mistake. So this week, I was encouraged to hear Secretary Hegseth proclaim a Trump buildup in the mold of the Reagan buildup that helped end the Cold War. For the record, my fellow defense appropriators and I have been ready to deliver such a buildup since day one. And our bipartisan bill speaks for itself, putting money where our mouth is. But here's the rub. We can only make it happen if the administration moves from words to action. And an important step in that process is the National Defense Strategy. Historically, the National Defense Strategy is what administrations use to define threats, identify objectives, and propose coherent plans for aligning resources to actually meet them. But this time around, the stakes are a lot higher. A short-sighted NDS that doesn't align with the President's vision of American greatness and peace through strength could wind up as the pretext to extend Biden-era constraints on our military indefinitely. Unfortunately, early reports suggest that this risk may be real and that the NDS may turn out eerily similar to the rhetoric of Obama-era officials who viewed their remit as managing America's decline amid a transition to a multipolar world. If the NDS ignores the importance of maintaining American primacy, fails to account for the global nature of competition with China, or discounts the value of supporting and integrating allies and partners, it would risk further sabotaging the President's efforts to restore peace through strength. So I'll be interested to read how the Department is applying the lessons and dividends of security cooperation with allies and partners to looming challenges, how it plans to address critical munitions shortages, even as its fiscal 26 request and reconciliation investment fails to maximize existing production capacity, and how it accounts for the increased likelihood of simultaneous conflict in multiple theaters. If the administration means what it says about restoring deterrence, it would recognize how plans to reduce security cooperation with frontline NATO allies invite more brazen Russian incursions into the alliance's territory and airspace. It would recognize how China is watching closely for signs of weakening American commitments to European allies, to Ukraine, or to AUKUS partners. Of course, responsible senior officials who understand the dividends of security cooperation would not have tried to run around the President to freeze assistance to Ukraine. They certainly would have appreciated that cutting off intelligence sharing to the world's foremost experts in drone warfare might make it harder for the U.S. military to achieve drone dominance. On that count, I was encouraged earlier this week that the President himself greenlit an expansion of the intelligence cooperation that members of his administration had actually wanted to end. As our colleagues will recall, the President observed last month that Ukraine can win. The President said Ukraine can win. And unlike some of his advisors, the American people are indicating in clear majorities that they think we ought to help. By one recent poll, more than 6 in 10 Americans support sending more arms and military supplies to help Ukraine win. That includes, listen to this, a clear majority of Republicans support helping Ukraine. And the recent voting history of the House of Representatives indicates that poll isn't a fluke. Last month, House Republicans voted overwhelmingly to reject an amendment to the NDAA that would have barred further assistance to Ukraine. So listen to this. 72% of House Republicans, including House leadership, said continuing to arm Ukraine's defense was a good idea. So the public is behind it. Republicans in Congress are behind it. We know it's the right thing to do. Ultimately, the President knows that money talks. He understands that valuable things are expensive. What's true in property development is also true in military procurement. There's no way around it. Take Golden Dome, for example. Building anything close to a continental missile defense shield will, by reasonable estimates, cost several times more than was allocated this year in one-off reconciliation spending. Every year. for decades to come. If the Pentagon isn't even planning to max out its budget request for procuring critical munitions in the short term, why on earth should our adversaries take any talk of long-term missile defense seriously? Likewise, why should they take American air power seriously if we're only willing to develop sixth-generation stealth fighters for the Air Force, but not for the Navy? What good are multi-billion-dollar aircraft carriers if we're not prepared to equip them with aircraft that can survive modern warfare? At home and abroad, I'm concerned that too many of the President's advisors are unwilling to acknowledge the gap between his stated priorities and what they're prepared to invest to achieve them. If you ask me, the name on the front door at the Pentagon matters a great deal less than whether the services inside are equipped and prepared to deter and win wars. And we're facing real, glaring gaps in critical capabilities. The ink was barely dry on the one big, beautiful bill when senior Pentagon officials began to report to my colleagues and I on the Appropriations Committee that they still face significant funding shortfalls. Given the high pace of operations in the Middle East and in the Western Hemisphere, it's safe to assume these costs are only going to continue to rise. So, Mr. President, there's a lot going on around this building. But soon, I hope our colleagues will have an opportunity to go on record in favor of investing in peace through strength. We'll have a chance to put our money where our mouth is on reestablishing deterrence and rebuilding the force required to back it up. Our investments in the common defense are a signal of our national resolve. When the American people spoke last November, I don't think they meant for their leaders to mail in a third year of anemic Biden-era top lines. I don't think the President assembled his policy and budget advisors with a mind to punt in the face of looming threats. When he hired civilian Pentagon leaders to restore deterrence, I think he meant more than just threatening adversaries with a catchy line on camera. I think he meant building the force that threatens them with its very existence. So the administration wants a Trump buildup, then let's build one. And once Democrat shutdown is over, let's start with serious, increased, full-year investments in our national defense.
All right, you've been listening into the U.S. Senate discussing the government shutdown. That was Mitch McConnell speaking about the status of negotiations so far. Of course, there's still a stalemate between the Democrats and Republicans. No end in sight, but we'll see if we'll get some more information today as they return to session.